stimulate creative thinking. Okay? So the first question that I ask myself on a day-to-day basis is, am I investing in myself? I want you guys raise your hand. Do you guys ever feel like you should be doing something productive? Like let's say your new guys here or your team's here, and you kind of sense that everybody's like lollygagging and whatever, and you want to do something but you just don't know what to do. Raise your hand if you've ever felt like that. The reason that happens is because you're just not investing into yourself enough. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Why would that be?
Scared of what people think.
How so?
Like, as in, like, why you not investing? Like, why you not stepping up?
No. So, like, why do you feel like you have nothing to teach your guys?
Oh, no, I don't know about that.
You don't know enough.
Failure.
You're not seeking.
Because you don't
Right,
know.
because you don't know enough.
You don't know enough.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
You're like, damn, I taught my guy the 5 steps, the Fuji, the whatever. So you are capped out on what you know because you're not continuously investing into yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the only reason I know how to run this meeting is because
You're investing.
You know.
I was investing. I learned it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now, as soon as I learned it, I'm able to teach it on to others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So this question really pertains to personal growth. And do we think that's valuable for a leader?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And then under that, you can write, if you want to or not, there's 3 types of people. Okay? And what I would do is just be honest with yourself and put yourself in a category. The first one is the unlearned. These are typically like newer people, people that obviously are new and just don't know as much, right? Mm-hmm. So they're kind of like very raw in a sense. Number 2 is the learned. These are people who have been put into a leadership type of role, and they've let that position kind of get to their head, and they're like, oh, I know it all. I know how to train. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And they kind of just stop learning. Does that make sense? And they're kind of capping themselves out, and it's a very dangerous position to be in because you will not grow. Does that make sense? You're not willing to take feedback. You're not willing to be a student. And the last one, which is the best one, the learners. These are people that are learning on a day-to-day basis, and they're investing into themselves. So, like for example, me every night, whenever I'm done reading whatever book that I'm reading, I always take a picture of my notes and I send them to Richard. Not because I want Richard to know that that I'm reading. I do it more for myself as an accountability thing, because I know if I continue sending pictures to Richard, the one day that I don't send them, he's gonna know. And it helps me stay disciplined. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because if I'm not, because sometimes I need help with my discipline, right? I'm not the best or person at that, and so I like to have someone kind of keep me accountable. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's something that I recommend for you guys. Number 2, the second question that I ask myself is, am I genuinely interested in others? Why do you guys think this is a good question?
Because a lot of people can be selfish.
Right? So, what else? Yes.
John C. Maxwell said, "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care."
Right. So this is a question that pertains to motives. And typically, whenever someone's trying to help someone else or do something for someone else, it's really 2 reasons. It's either manipulation or motivation. Okay? Manipulation is when you're moving this individual for personal benefit. Like, hey, I have this new guy or this leader that I'm trying to promote and grow because it helps me grow. Does that make sense? Versus giving them motivation, which is moving people for personal benefit. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
I mean, not personal benefit, mutual benefit. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can someone explain that?
Like moving people.
So like when you're helping others by seeing them succeed, that's not you being selfish as you're thinking about yourself, right? So you're putting in the effort and you're giving the knowledge that you have is to see them go up there with you. So you don't look down at them, you look straight to them.
Right.
So that's what it means to me.
And how I look at it is making other people's goals your goals.
Mm-hmm. How's that beneficial?
Because if you help enough people reach their goals, by default you'll hit yours.
Right. So here's another key point that I want you guys to focus on. For you guys, you want to be growth motivated versus goal motivated.
That's good.
Because if you look at it like this, like let's say for example, hey, my goal is to get to ownership. And then at that point, it's kind of like, what's next? Does that make sense? If you just focus on goals, once you hit them, so let's say your goal is, I'm gonna do 2 sales, or your goal is, I'm gonna interview 2 people, or whatever it is, right? Move away from the goal itself, right? It's important to have goals, right? Because that's something that we all want to do. But focus on growth, right? Focus on growth. At the end of the day, all I want to do is just help other people become better. Do you think by having that type of growth mindset, you'll eventually hit your goals?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, 3 questions that everyone asks of their leader is number 1, can you help me? So if you have a team under you, I promise you they're asking themselves, can this individual actually help me? Number 2 is, do you care about me? And number 3 is, can I trust you? Your team at some point, while they've been under you, they're asking themselves these questions about you. You just got to make sure that you're giving them the correct answers.
What was your?
Number 2 was, do you care about me?
Can I trust you?
Number 3 is, am I doing what I love? And loving what I do. Why do you guys think this is an important question? Some of you newer people, or not the frequent talkers.
Shows your effort.
Are you looking at me?
I'm looking right at you, my man.
Thank you. So before you can like light a fire in someone else, you gotta have a fire in yourself. So if you don't really care about what you're doing, I can't go motivate someone. So it's just gonna be like kind of weak coaching.
Yeah, you looking
I'm looking right.
at me? So, me personally, I always say if I'm doing what I love and loving what I do, then it never feels like work.
Genuinely. I agree. So this is a question about passion. And the reason this is important, right, especially for the leaders that are here or people that are pushing into leadership, this is important because if you're passionate about something, that's really what allows you, kind of like what Josh was saying, that's really what allows you to put your all into something. Does that kind of make sense? Because if you're not passionate about the growth, about getting into management, you're never going to be fully committed. Does that make sense? And that's really like the commitment level is really what prevents someone from actually growing into our program. Okay? What number are we at? 4? Number 4
I mean, you got.
is, am I investing my time with the right people? Am I investing my time with the right people? Why do you guys think this is important?
You are.
Besides Keith. Mr. John,
Association.
associate, how so?
So,
Speak to the people.
Like the one that Richard always says, if you go to the gym with a bunch of buff people, you're probably gonna be buff. You go smoke weed with a bunch of potheads, you're gonna be a pothead. So you probably wanna go to somebody.
You'd rather want to do something different.
that actually benefits you, something
Yeah.
that's gonna help you grow.
So this is a relationship question. So that you kind of like what John was saying, the reason that this is important is because it's all about the association, right? You are who you surround yourself with. And you know, as I'm realizing, like a lot of the meetings that from John Maxwell, they all kind of are pushing the exact same things, right? Pretty sure you guys heard me talk about yesterday, like loving what you do and enjoying it. I don't even know if it was yesterday or the other day. And then, am I investing my time with the right people? Because it's whenever someone asks, like, hey, why is this person successful? Or, you know, how did they achieve so much fame and stuff like that? It's literally always like the same answers, right? I hope you guys are like realizing that as you spend more time here. It's always the same answers. It's commitment. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you investing into yourself? And so on and so forth. Number 2 or number 5?
Number 2, number 5.
Number 5 is, am I staying in my strength zone?
Strength.
Strength zone. And something interesting that he says is stop working on your weaknesses and start working on your strengths. Now that doesn't mean like if you're obviously if you're like unorganized or if you don't have a strong work ethic, those are things that like are kind of like core values that we have here, like student mentality, work ethic, and attitude. But what he's saying is like, for example, if my weakness is sometimes when someone's in this office, they feel like they have to be loud or very outgoing, and that's not everybody's strength. Does that kind of make sense? So that's like a weakness of this individual. So stop trying to work on that because that's just not you. Work on your strength that you're very good on at doing like one-on-ones with people and genuinely caring about someone. Does that kind of make sense? How else would you do that? How else could you work on a strength versus a weakness?
Repetition. Just hold yourself accountable.
Okay. Yes.
You don't want me to answer.
Basically, the way I see it is like work on what you're good at and then really do what you're not. Like that's what a lot of people do. Like a lot of successful, like for example, YouTubers. They're good at making content, but they can't edit, so that's why they get editors. There's things to people who are good at editing and they work on what they're good at, and it's
Good. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Like if work ethic is a weakness, that doesn't mean stop working on it. Like I hope you guys are understanding what I'm trying to say. It's just kind of in that sense. Like my weakness is organization. I'm gonna try my best, but at the end of the day, I like surrounding myself with people that are very way more organized than me because it just helps me out. And then I'm the guy that just does all the talking and the screaming. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Before I get it wrong, number 6. Am I taking others to a higher level? What do you guys think this means?
Are you growing anybody other than yourself?
Right. Say it louder for the people in the back.
Oh, are you growing anybody other than yourself?
Look at that. So this is a mission question. And I want you guys to understand, like, success is really determined by the seeds you sow versus the harvest you reap. As long as you keep planting seeds in others and helping them grow, like at the end of the day, you're just gonna end up winning. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Number 7, I think this one's super important, especially for those of you in this room right now. Am I taking care of today? This is a success question. Why do you guys think this is important? Yes.
So basically, it doesn't really matter what happened in the past or the future. It's about today. So, like, I don't know if anybody of you have read it, but the compound effect. So it doesn't matter if you worked out 4 hours yesterday, but you haven't worked out for the rest of the week. Like, if you work 20 minutes every day, you got done what you needed to do that day. You'll be in good shape from that year.
Right. Yes.
I also think this is about your habits too. And so like everything that you do within one day affects the next day. So if you just aren't working on your habits the previous day, it's not going to be good the next day.
Right. So the way I look at this is like, what am I doing today that's gonna actually push me forward to the next step in my either the training program or my career, my relationship, or whatever it may be. Like at the end of the day, we want you guys to become part of the management team. Like what did you do today, right, in the time that we have to get you there to the next step, right? Because I feel like a lot of people just kind of waste time, right? And at the end of the day, what we don't want is someone to be here for a while and not see any growth that we promised them. But at the end of the day, they have to meet us halfway, and they have to do their part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Number 8. Number 12. Am I taking time to think? I feel like a lot of times we kind of just rush through everything. And really at the end of the day, like you got to kind of sit down and think. Like, so like for example, for myself, I like to get here a little early and just really plan out my day. I typically write my game plans the day before, and then I come in into the morning and just kind of review it. Like, okay, is this based off of what the information that I have right now? Like, is this the best course of action for myself, right? Like again, last night I sent my game plan to Richard. I'm like, hey, is there anything that you would change if you were me or in my position and stuff like that? Any advice that you would have? And I kind of just work like that. Like that gives me my time to think. Like, hey, I'm gonna do this with this individual. I'm gonna say this to these people, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? So just take more time to think on your own, and kind of get your upline to really help out, like iron out the details. If that makes sense. And then number 9 is, am I developing leaders? This is a legacy question. And I remember when I first got into this training program, my real goal was like, I just want to be like filthy rich. Is really what I wanted. I just want to be filthy rich, nasty rich, and just disgustingly rich. And now if you ask me, like, do I have that same goal? I mean, kind of, sort of, not really. And the person that helped me change this is really Richard, and also this guy named, I hope you guys get to meet him one day. His name is Khalil. They call him Habibi sometimes. Super great manager. I think he has like 27 promotions and stuff like that. And I remember one day we were at a conference and he was talking about like really the money is not important. Like he makes a ton of money. I think he makes like 60 grand a week or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just nasty, bro. It's crazy. But he said that the money doesn't really matter. Like at some point, like after you make a certain amount of money, like anything on top of that, it really just adds no other value to your life as some would expect. And he said that the biggest thing that he wants to do is he wants to leave a legacy behind. He wants to leave something that's going to last for a while, because the money's not going to last for forever. And he wants to leave a legacy behind to his people. And when I look at this, and I'm asking like, who is this person? I really look at Richard. Like Richard's kind of checking off every single one of these boxes. He's always investing in himself. He makes me feel like he's genuinely interested in me, even after all the times I've messed up. And you can just tell that he's enjoying what he does. And I think he's a great example, and I feel like a lot of us don't use him enough, especially when he's here, right? He's an RC, so for those of you guys that probably don't understand what that means, is he's a regional consultant. He's helped, I think, like 17 other people go from the entry-level role to management. Like, he's really good at what he does, and my favorite thing about him is he's always been very, very humble. Like, imagine that, like, he's very, very successful. He has the regional consultant position, and when was it, like Tuesday? He goes to the field with the guys. Like, I think that's incredible, and I feel like a lot of us don't talk about it enough or really understand the value that is. Raise your hand if your parents have ever met their CEO of whatever company they work at. So I think 2 people, 3 people maybe, right? So it's not a very common thing. Like, how many times have you ever seen a CEO of a company go all the way to the bottom and say, hey, I'm gonna work with the team today. I'm gonna be in the field doing boots on the ground type of work with my team today, because I think that's what's gonna add the most value to help us grow. Like, isn't that like very selfless?
Yeah.
Like, does he need to go out there with the guys? Why do you think he doesn't? Or why do you think he did it? Belief?
Because of their success matters to him as well, and passing on the knowledge. So
Yeah. Yes.
I think that he wouldn't do anything that he wouldn't ask anybody else to do. Or he wouldn't, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I remember when, I'm pretty sure in your interview, like I said, we grow internally. We're looking for people that can get to the top position. We're not looking for bosses. We're not looking for people that are just gonna boss people around and look over them. At the end of the day, we're looking for leaders, people that are gonna, whatever they're making you do, they've done it before, and they messed it up so many times. And I think he's just a great example of a leader. And if I were you, right, I would try to figure out a way to earn his time more. Because obviously he's very, very busy, overseeing about 17 other cities, and we're just very blessed to have him here. And I think we don't use him enough. I use him as much as I can every single day. If he's like a sponge, I'm like squeezing all the water out of it, all the juice, right? The fruit, the apple juice, trying to take all of it out, because I know that if I do that, he's gonna help me grow to achieve things I've never even thought about achieving. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So use this as a standard for yourself, like, hey, how many of these things am I actually doing, right? How many of these things can I say yes to? And I promise you, Richard's saying yes to every single one of these, right? And the closer that you are to doing so, the closer you are to his position. Does that kind of make sense? Do you guys think we can use this today?
Yeah.